The Hedgehog Defense is a military tactic in which a defending army creates mutually supporting strong points in a defense in depth which is designed to sap the strength and break the momentum of an attacking army. The strong points are designed to be expensive for an attacker to assault, and although the defending positions can be bypassed, and are indeed designed to be bypassed, doing so exposes the attacker's rear echelons and line of communications to counter-attack. Description: in warfare, the Hedgehog Defense is a military tactic for defending against a mobile armored attack, or blitzkrieg. The defenders deploy in depth in heavily fortified positions suitable for all-around defense. The attackers can penetrate between these hedgehogs, but each position continues to fight on when surrounded. This keeps large numbers of attacking troops tied up, attacking the well-defended strong points, while allowing the defenders to successfully counterattack against the units that bypass these strong points with their own armored reserves by cutting them off from the supporting elements. World War II. The tactic was proposed by General Maxim Weygand during the Battle of France in 1940. However, Allied forces in 1940 were unable to successfully apply the tactic before they sustained heavy losses and France capitulated. The remaining forces which did apply the tactic were simply bypassed. On the Eastern Front, the German army used the tactic successfully during the Soviet winter advances, notably in the Battle of Moscow in 1941, in the Second RZHEV Sykhuka offensive in November 1942, and in the battle around Oral during Operation Saturn in February 1943. On the Eastern Front, Germans adopted the additional feature commonly associated with Hedgehog Defense: resupply of the strong points by air, particularly in the winter of 1941–42. The advanced Hedgehogs, effectively surrounded by the Soviets, such as the Demyansk pocket, were supplied mainly by air. Although casualties were heavy, these strong points held up large numbers of attacking Soviet troops and prevented them from being deployed elsewhere. The successful defense of the Demyansk pocket, for example, helped stem the Soviet counteroffensive following the Battle of Moscow. Although aerial resupply reduced reliance on vulnerable ground transport, it inflicted enormous strain on the Luftwaffe. The successful holding of forward positions in these battles led Adolf Hitler to insist for the remainder of the war that static positions be held to the last man. But growing weakness of the Luftwaffe and increasing combat capabilities of the Soviet Air Force made resupply of isolated strongpoints by air difficult. In particular, Hitler had hoped that the surrounded Stalingrad could be turned into a giant hedgehog, tying up vast numbers of Soviet troops. After the Battle of Kursk in 1943, the German army lacked the essential components of the tactic: the mobile armored reserve and an air combat capability necessary to secure local air superiority for keeping open aerial supply corridor, thus losing the war. The British Army used Brigade Boxes during the Western Desert Campaign. The boxes consisted of reinforced brigade-sized forces of all arms, protected by barbed wire and with the space between boxes covered by minefields. Defensive the boxes was centered around mutually supporting field artillery and anti-tank guns, which covered the minefields and the approaches to neighboring boxes. In the jungles of Burma during the Burma campaign, the forward defensive positions were formed by battalion boxes of battalion-sized forces. Post-World War II. Following the end of World War II, this tactic was successfully used in Southeast Asia by the French against the Viet Minh in the Battle of Nha San. The French suffered a disaster in the Battle of Dien Bien Phu when General GIP deployed unexpectedly heavy concentrations of anti-aircraft artillery around the French garrison and successfully disrupted aerial resupply. Hedgehog Defense was central in U.S. Marines' successful defensive Khe-san against the PAVN. A notable example of modern hedgehog defense is the Battle of Vukovar during the Croatian War of Independence, in which a small, ill-armed but determined Croatian resistance kept a larger, heavily equipped but less motivated Yugoslav army at bay, buying precious time for the fledgling Republic of Croatia to organize their own armed forces. Another, ultimately less successful, application was the Iraqi military strategy during the First Gulf War to fortify Kuwait and create an extensive hedgehog defensive position. These forward defensive positions were staffed by its elite Republican Guard. The dug-in forces complemented in-depth defense features such as minefields, tank traps, fire trenches, and other trench and bunker warfare.